Welcome once again to another edition of Religion and Politics. My name is Wale, and today we're going to talk about, do black men protect black women? And so once again, this is Wale Ade. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me well on the mic. So if you can hear me well, just put a 1 in the comment section. Just put a 1 in the comment section. Make sure that I hear you all correctly, or that you guys can hear me clearly. And so today we're going to talk about, do black men protect black women? And so, as you all know, the situation that happened at Sunday with the Oscars involving Will Smith and Chris Rock. I know this is Wednesday. You probably heard so many takes. You probably heard people's, point of view on the issue. But I'm just here to kind of talk about what I heard. See, one of the things that I learned in my training is, sometimes, people can be so full of emotion that their words come out in a way that, may not seem sensible to some, or may not seem logical. That's a lot of words that I hear. And so one of the things that I realized is I was taught that you got to listen to the emotion behind the words. And so why am I saying this? A lot of people were debating on whether, Will Smith was in the right or Will Smith was in the wrong for what he did. But the thing about it is, as I was listening, and I was actually pulled into these conversations as well, I started to hear something, a reoccurring theme. I started to hear some emotion. I started to hear something behind these arguments. And the thing that I heard was that black women feel that black men do not protect them. And so today we want to have a conversation just basically talking about this point. And so, I want to hear from you in the comments. If you're on right now, just go ahead into the comment section. Do you think black men protect black women? Because this is something that, I think a lot of times there's a disconnect when it comes to, how we deal with each other, how we interact with each other, how we communicate with each other. I think on one side you see women, they have, their mindset on things, they think their way on things. And then on the other side, you have men, and they have their mindset on things, and they think their way about things. But the issue is that we rarely have the patience, we rarely have the mindset to come together and to really have the tough and hard conversations to see how can we interact, or do we even give chance for the other person who is talking? Do we listen to what they're saying? Do we actually maybe consider that there might be something there, or are we just stuck in our ways? Are we just, firm in our stance? And that's what I'm kind of seeing, is that there's a lot of polarization going on right now when it comes to this topic. And so, do black men protect black women? As a matter of fact, I've heard this from a lot of young black women. In fact, some women that I've dated, I've also heard this, that, I think, a lot of times women have a hard time trusting men because of the issues that they've had with black men in the past. And so what does that look like? Some women have issues with, their fathers, right? Some women have issues with, maybe some of the mentors that have come into their world, or maybe they've been, sexually harassed by men at the job, or, maybe they've, just had some harmful encounters with black men or in their relationships, right? Where relationship after relationship, things happen. Maybe the man's cheating. Maybe he's emotionally unavailable. So many different factors that happen that, a lot of women have started to, have put their guards up when it comes to black men. They start to be distrusting of black men. They start to, not be as open or vulnerable with black men, because the black man that they see on the other side of them, whether that's their spouse, whether that's their significant other, just reminds them of all of the other black men that they thought were there to protect them, but actually weren't there to protect them. And so as I was going through this, and I was just kind of, listening to some of, the comments, I started to realize that there is not a sound definition on what it means to protect black women, right? And so, as I went through and I posed the question on Facebook, one person talked about something, and somebody else talked about something else, and and so there was so many different views, and I'm like, there's not a standardized definition for protection. But one thing that is sure is that black women are not feeling like they are protected. And so Nika N says that sometimes black men protect black women. And so I would agree. I think to make any type of generalized statement is very polarizing. I think it'll rile up the people that are on different bases or different sides of the argument. I think it'll be something that, people is just so, people just like to play on emotions. And so anytime you say always or all the time or any type of form of totality, your statement's probably faulty, because there's no way that there'll always be, black men don't protect black women, or there'll always be that, black women are this or that. And so, yeah, thank you for adding that, because I think that's important to put into the conversation. And so let me just kind of go into some of the comments that came, the responses. So I put on Facebook, I was trying to figure out, like, how does a black man protect a black woman? Like, what does that look like? Because, like I said, there were so many different definitions, with the Will and Jada, the Will and Chris Rock situation. Some people were like, yeah, that's how you're supposed to stand up for your black woman, and they'll applaud it, because he went up there and smacked him. And other people were like, nah, that was wrong. He should have put his hands on him. Protection is of equal force. So if Chris Rock says something, then Will should have said something back, or he should have warned him, or he should have threatened him, or he should have taken it behind the scenes. There were so many different dynamics here. That people weren't really in agreement on what does it mean to protect black women. And so the question that I posed on Facebook, it said this. It said, I think one of the biggest insights for me that came out of this Will Smith and Chris Rock situation is that there are a lot of black women who do not feel protected by black men. So I asked the question I posed, what is it that's supposed to look like? How far do you want your man to go for you so that you feel protected? And is protection physical? Is it mental? Is it emotional? And I'm saying I think this conversation needs to be had. And so, I'm going to kind of just share with you some of the responses that came from the women. And of course, I'm not going to share their names for their privacy. But one lady said, I believe protection is all of the above. And no, women aren't protected enough by black men, and even by our fathers in some instances. It's sad but true. And so I think, unfortunately, and we can get into that discussion. There's a whole realm about that when it comes about, black fathers or black fathers being absent, different things like that. One thing I've learned is that, I don't judge anybody in their situation. Every situation is individual. Every situation has its own unique, details to it. But I think there is, for many different reasons, that there are not enough, of a dual parent family in society anymore. As a matter of fact, I think the last statistic I saw probably about 3 years ago stated that I think it was like, and don't quote me on this, but I think it was like 82% of black African American households are single parent households, and 93% of that 82% is single mother households. And so what you're seeing is that most people with, my color skin or my hue or my complexion do not have two parents raising them. They're actually used to just a single mom. And so what does that mean? That means that, there's a dynamic. There's, some people will call masculine energy. Some people will call, that masculinity. There's a missing piece there that these children today aren't really receiving. And I just want to shout out, all single parents, not just single moms. There's single dads out there too, because you all have a lot on your plate. And so it's easy for somebody to condemn, single people on what they're not doing. but try raising a child. I only watch my niece for, probably, a few moments at a time. And I'm like, yo, it's hard enough just watching somebody who's not my child as opposed to providing full-time care, around the clock care for a child. And so, I respect all parents out there, but I think there is something missing when that masculinity or that man is missing from the home. And so I think this starts to cause some of the issues and some of the tensions on how people interact. I'm talking about men and women with, their fathers or their father figures and different things like that. And so she's saying that men, from even fathers, and I think that's what a lot of people also who have fathers, this is the person in their mind that's supposed to want them, that's supposed to protect them, that's supposed to guard them. And so when they're absent for whatever reason, whether it's death, mass incarceration, or they just left, or there's conflict between them and the baby mother, there's just a void that's left. And so now they're looking, a lot of people, and this men and women are searching for that father figure in order to fill that void, because they know that a part of them is missing. And so that starts off, according to her, some of that missing protection that black women are looking for. And I see each view of Adefolake Yaba says, each view of protection depends on the person. Each view of protection depends on them. And I agree, because, even when you think about the love languages, right? If you're doing something that's not speaking that person's love language, no matter how much you're doing, it's not going to have the same impact. And so I think when we talk about protection, it does cater to the individual. What does the individual expect? I think this is some of the conversations, especially when you're dating somebody, or you're married to somebody, or you're in a serious relationship with somebody, that, you probably need to have these conversations, because each different conversation, each different person has a different set of expectations, and you got to make sure you both are on the same page. And so communication is a key part of this protection. I'm just going to take a break out right now to just shout out Nana Simone. This is a youth. She's at my church. She's very talented. I mean, she does hair, she makes shirts, she makes clothes. And so I had the privilege of being able to wear one of her shirts. So I want to make sure I shout her out. If you want one of these shirts, or, I'm not going to stand up, but I actually have sweatpants, and I'm talking about they're comfortable, they fit well. Just go ahead and watch the description. There's a link in the description below to her website. Please support her. Young black woman doing great things, great head on her shoulders. Go ahead and support her by checking out her merchandise. But back to the conversation. We heard another young lady said this, and so I'm going to go ahead and she said, please understand that I do not believe that every situation calls for getting the taste slapped out of one's mouth. However, there are consequences to disrespecting someone regardless of the time or space. That being said, protection is more than just physical. It's protection against verbal, emotional, and mental attacks. For example, if Will's mom often said something slick to Jada and Will didn't stand up for his wife, did he protect her? And so I'm just going to pause right here, because I got to agree with this right here. I think, there's a lot of guys, women, I don't like this term, but, just to get the idea out there, that call, guys mama's boys and different things like that, and sometimes, they're not willing to stand up, to their family, especially their moms, when it comes to their wife. And so one of the things that I would say is, when you marry, right, when you have that union where the husband and the wife comes together, one of the things that, you got to understand is that you got to protect that relationship at all costs, right? Nobody should come in between. I don't care if it's family. I don't care if it's friends. I don't care who it is. No, you got to guard the integrity of your relationship. And so, you have to sometimes, unfortunately, put, your family members and your friends in their place, especially when they're coming out of line. And so I agree with her on that. It says, if a child was being bullied by constantly being told that they're ugly, but there's no physical bullying, do the mental attacks mean nothing? Should all of that be disregarded since no one was physically hurt? Or how about if someone threatens to bring bodily harm to a female and the female tries to file a police report? The police tell her nothing can be done because she hasn't been physically hurt yet. Is that the only time protection can occur, when it's physical? And so I think she actually, brings up a good point, because I know there's times when certain ladies complain about harassment, or certain ladies are complaining about something. They call the police, and the police are like, well, according to the laws, our hands are tied. They haven't done anything physical. They haven't done X, Y, and Z, even though there might be some serious harassment there. And so what does protection look like? Or even how she said words. Words do hurt, as we know, maybe from our own childhoods, or from, what we see from our kids, or, what we just see in society, or maybe your own experience. Sometimes somebody may have said something that's hurtful and harmful to you, right? And because they've said that, it's stuck with you. Or maybe you were at a low point, or you had some vulnerabilities and some insecurities, and somebody spoke to those things. And so, what do you do? What's your response when it comes to that? So she goes on to say, the fact that so many men felt that Will was wrong was heartbreaking to me. It was like, as black women are only allowed to be protected if our past deems us worthy, or if it's only behind closed doors. Because if it's going to ruffle feathers or make someone feel uncomfortable, then black women aren't worth that level of effort. We aren't worth that level of concern. And so I think that was, a strong statement from this young lady, that, she just feels like that Will Smith was justified, and that, the reason why so many black men were against it just kind of was disheartening to her. And so I'm pulling up the comment. It says, Ade Falake, yeah, but thank you for watching. Yes, protection from the in-laws. I definitely believe that is necessary. And so going back to her statement, I want to hear what you think. Do you think that were you disheartened because of the men that weren't saying that Will Smith was right? Or are you disheartened because men were actually saying that he was wrong? Do you think that because men were against the intensity of his response, that means that black women aren't worth enough? I want to hear from you in the comments. Let me know what you think, because that's a question that's posed. I think there's a lot of hurt behind these statements, and that's what this whole conversation is about. We want to address the hurt. See, I'm not even trying to address whether somebody was right or wrong. Everybody's going to have their opinion, but what is going on with the hurt? Why is it that black women are not feeling like they are protected? And so, Kyle, thank you for joining. It says, a physical reaction to a non-physical impending harm isn't the correct approach, in my opinion. And so I actually wrote on this in one of my earlier Facebook posts as well. I think it depends, right? I definitely think it depends, right? Because, if somebody, I think she said this, but this is an extreme case, right? If somebody pulls out a knife, right? And they didn't hit you with it, but they pull out a knife, you got two options. You can either run or you can knock them out, right? Or, you can try to disarm them. And so you might initiate that physical response, but, there was a threat level that there's a high threat level that, warranted a physical response. So they might have to be physical first, but there are those extreme cases. So I do agree with you, because what I wrote in my post, and I'll just go there real quick, is that, and I fully stand by this. What I said is, I'm just going to say this about the Will Smith and the Chris Rock situation. See, I don't even believe in roasting people anymore, because you don't know what type of depression or trauma someone is or has gone through, and the life-altering effects that your words may have on them. And so I said, that being said, Will's actions should not be applauded. And this is the reason why. I said the problem is that many black men are incarcerated or dead for emotionally reacting to a situation involving their woman with violence. See, it sounds good to stand for your woman's honor in this way, but if you spend time in prison or end up dead for a situation that got out of hand as a husband or a father, who is going to take care of your family? See, and I'm saying this because I've done ministry in the prison. I've worked in the juvenile detention center. I've been in the community, and it's just a split-second decision that actually leaves families even worse off than they were before that incident happened. And I also say that there are plenty of ways to defend your woman's honor, and Will is being lauded partly because he could afford to assault Chris and get away with it with a slap on the wrist. So once again, that's not just being black, but it's also your social economic status. Sometimes when you have money to pay for lawyers, when you have money to pay, to get yourself out of sticky situations, to get good lawyers and different things, you got connections, you got celebrity, you have a little bit more leeway to do this. But the average black guy, right? The average dude, on the street, what I also said is that he may not be able to do that. The sad reality is that most black men can't do this and get away with it without severe consequences. And so I ended it by saying we have to think before we react, because the people that applaud your actions today will forget you tomorrow while you're locked up in a cell or laying 6 feet under. And so I think, that's something that we have to really think about. Is, as black men, a lot of times we're already seen as a threat, right? We're already seen as violent. We're already seen as intimidating, right? And so I think this is the struggle that me and other black men I talk to have, is that, yes, you want to make sure that you're defending your woman. You want to make sure that nobody disrespects her. You want to make sure that all these things go right. But really, even in this society today, like, it's not the same as it used to be, right? People used to always use their hands, right? You used to be able to, fight it out. You used to be able to, just fight and move on. But it's like in this society, people don't fight anymore. Most of these people can't fight, so the first thing they do is pull a weapon, they pull a gun, and the next thing you know, in a split second, that one altercation of defending your woman's honor ends with you leaking on the ground, while the paramedics are trying to make sure that you stay alive. And so I've seen it before. I know plenty of young guys who've got into it and gotten killed. I've experienced it in the prison, where I've heard many different stories. I got homeboys myself who have gone through these things. And so that's why I'm like, it's not a clear cut thing. It's not a clear cut, situation. It's very hard. It's a very difficult and complex situation. So black men need to protect black women, but they can't protect their black woman if they're dead or they're in a jail cell. So that's where we need to have this conversation and get to a place where we can really, really listen and find out a good way to solve this issue. Ade Falake Yaba says, the problem was that violence was unnecessary. It was overkill. And so, a lot of people bring up in that situation how when the camera spanned on him after he said the joke that Will was laughing, but then you saw Jada's face. She wasn't having none of it. And so, they're like, he changed up, after that happened. Other people are talking about because Jada doesn't seem like she's worthy, that she didn't deserve protection. And so, I would argue against that, because I'm like, if that's your wife, you got to take care of, of your wife, now I don't know, I'm not going to say that, smacking Chris Rock was the answer, but you got to make sure that you do take care of your wife. And so, that begs the question also, sometimes I hear that black men should just protect any black woman, right? What do you guys think about that? Do you think that black men should only protect their black women, whether that's their daughter, whether that's their wife, whether that's their, mother, whether that's their sisters, or do you think black men should protect all black women? So you just walking on the street, don't know what's going on, but you see something that you may think need a woman that needs protection. Should you just step in? What do you think? Do you think you should mind your business, just take care of me, myself, and mine? Or do you think that you should be protecting every black woman that's out there? And also, I just want to hear, if a woman is deemed unworthy, right, using these words, then does she deserve protection, right? Because I think sometimes there's conversations on the other end where it's like, black women don't like they aren't worthy for whatever reason. So a lot of people say for Will, because she put a lot of their personal business out there, even with the whole entanglement argument, she kind of made him look like a fool. Some people use the word simp, and so, because she disrespected, right, their relationship, that she doesn't deserve to be covered. And so, I don't know, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think somebody has to perform in order to get the benefit of protection, or do you think people should just be protected? Black women should just be protected just because. And so I kind of want to hear your comments on that. And so I also want to go back to the comments that were said in the post. And so that was one woman's take, and I'm only reading the women because the men, we it's good we can say what protection is, right? But unless we listen to the people that are in pain, it's just us overshadowing what they're saying. And so we can give our comments on what they say, but we got to let them talk and say what they feel protection is. And so another lady said, in my opinion, a man should only physically protect me if I am in some sort of danger. In other words, I want a man to pop off when it's absolutely necessary, not for jokes or someone running their mouth. And so, once again, like I said before, there's so many different definitions on what protection looks like, right? And so that's why we have to have this conversation. And you need to have this conversation with the woman in your life so that you guys are on the same page. Because the worst thing you want to happen is that you're out somewhere, you guys aren't on the same page, and then all of a sudden, something happens, and, that's a life-altering, a life-changing moment for your family, whatever that looks like. And so you guys got to have to know, what's going on. I know, there's been a time where I was out with, if I'm just going to be honest, I was out with Candace, and I asked her, like, do you want me to handle this? And she's like, nah. And so one thing I appreciate about her is that, and somebody said this in another post, that, black women also need to protect black men, right? And what does that mean? So maybe the man is ready to bump, right? Maybe he's ready to fight. Maybe he's ready to throw down. Maybe he's ready to inflict harm on behalf of his black woman, but she has the sense to know that this is going to end in a bad way for him and their family. And so, some people said Jada could have grabbed Will before he went up there, and stopped him from going up. And she wasn't protecting him because she allowed him to do that, which could have cost him his Oscar, could have cost him his job. His reputation, which would have cost him jobs in the future. And so I just want to know what you think about that. Should black men who are trying to physically protect or, protect their women in some type of way that can turn into a bad situation, should black women protect their men from actually doing those things? Do you just want to know that he is willing to do it, or are you actually going to let him do it and suffer the consequences after? So, let me know what you think about that. But I just really thought that was interesting that, black women's protection, it just varies depending on the black woman that you want. So you got to have that conversation. Communication is key. You got to have that conversation with the woman in your life. And so this young lady said, a female non-person of color made this remark, and it cuts deep and shines a very bright light on how black women are viewed. And so the comment that was made was, I don't know, what happened to keep your cool? Also, since when has Jada needed to be defended? She is one of the strongest women ever. And so I wonder, how do you black women feel about that? That title of strong black women. You don't need protection because you're a strong black woman, right? And so, people thinking about that, just looking at you and your skin color and just saying, oh, you're just automatically strong, right? So you don't need protection. Like, how do you feel about that people make those, those generalizations about you? I know, one of the things that I've heard, is that's unfortunate is, black women don't get as much, pain medication when they're giving birth or different things, or they're in pain because, just by the look of their skin color, they're supposed to, or they're assumed to have more of a resistance or more of a tolerance, right? And so they don't get treated fairly in the medical field, or even when you see black men that go, before the courts, you hear sometimes the white judges with the white males, oh, he's not made for prison, right? But we are, because the color of our skin makes us tougher, right? Those are the type of mindsets that allow some of the foolishness to happen, is because we're seen as being able to handle some of these traumatic situations. And so I can definitely see how that can be traumatic. So let me know what you think about that. Do you feel that black women don't need protection? Somebody put in the comments, so this was a man. He was like, but black women are always saying they don't need a man, right? But, when it comes to protection, now everybody needs a man. So, that's a conversation topic. Let me know what you think. Are you a black woman that doesn't think that you need a man? Or do you think that men are needed, black men are needed for protection? Because I think another side of this is that a lot of black men don't feel like they're valued by black women, right? For many different reasons. And so if they don't feel like they're valued, then they start to ask, like, why do I need to protect you if you're not even valuing what I have to say, if you're not really valuing my thoughts, if you're not valuing, who I am? Why are you now asking for something from me when you're not even reciprocating that respect? And so, what do you think about that? Do you think, black women have to respect black men before they get their protection? Or do you think black women should just be protected? We want to hear from you. And so another person responded, and they said, it's a loaded question, as protection from husband and wife encompasses so much. But for me, the protection defense needs to fit the crime. So if someone got physical with me or tried to, block it, defend me physically. If verbally, handle it verbally. And so this person is saying basically the same intensity that, the offense is coming is the same intensity that the defense should come. As a matter of fact, I remember when I was working in the juvenile detention center, one of the things they said is, you could have equal and opposite force, right? So if a kid picked up a chair like they wanted to throw it, you could pick up a chair too. If a kid picked up a table, you could pick up a table too. Not saying that you would throw it, but you can do the equal act, just in order to kind of, resolve the situation. And so what do you think about that? Do you think all verbal attacks are something that need to be defended verbally, or do you think sometimes it calls for physical altercations? So if somebody, let's just give an example. If somebody, you're walking with your wife, you're walking with, your girlfriend, maybe your sister, your mom, somebody call them out their name, right? They call them the B word, right? In your presence, what do you do? Do you go over there and smack them, punch them? Do you go rough them up? Do you go curse them out? Like, what do you do in response to something like that as you're out and about? This conversation has also come up because I think when it came with a lot of men that I've talked to, is like sometimes we know just how to ignore things, right? We know that, we ain't got to respond to everything. People out here, a lot of people are crazy. A lot of people aren't in their right minds, right? And so let's say you got, a family, you got things to live for. So you're like, I'm by myself. I can kind of just, sidetrack that. I can kind of ignore it. I can kind of just, act like it's not there. But I think one of the tensions happen is now when you're not by yourself and you're with your woman and something like that happens, a lot of times I think men say that women aren't able to just ignore or aren't able to just, move on without, now it's like, they're looking to you like you got to do something or you got to, react in a certain type of way. And honestly, men are greatly influenced by women. And so, we don't want to feel like we can't defend our woman, and we don't want our woman looking at us sideways like, oh, you a punk, or you less than, or you a B word. We don't want any of that. And so sometimes we feel pressure that we have to do something, even if it might not be the best decision in that moment in time. And so hopefully, I think from this conversation, we're seeing that, number one, we got to figure out what that looks like for the women in our lives, men. And then also, number two, we got to make sure that in these relationships that we're thinking about each other, right? We're not just caught up in the emotion of the time, but we're actually thinking about what's the best outcome for me and my family, or me and my spouse, or me and my significant other. So we're both protecting each other in those moments, because like I said, 50 years ago, you can box it out, somebody leave with a bloody mouth and it's all good. Nowadays, people ain't fighting anymore. They shooting, and we see that all across all different hoods, different areas. People will shoot you over just nothing, right? And so, let alone somebody looking like a punk getting whooped in a fight. Some people can't handle that. Next thing you know, they pull out a gun and it's over in a split second. Now the black man is dead and he's not there anymore. So these are all things that we have to consider as we think about protection. And so, so I just want to hear from you guys. What do you think black men should do in these situations? Should we go out and should we assert ourselves as somebody's disrespecting my wife or my? Should we go out and physically harm that person, or do you think that sometimes it depends on a situation based, or do you think that every time it's verbal, it should be responded with verbal, or anytime it's physical, should be responded in a physical manner? I think one of the key things in this conversation that wasn't brought up is that Chris Rock has openly come out that he has a disability that kind of affects him being able to pick up on social cues. Like, he doesn't have great social skills, right? And so I think that was missed, that even if he told the joke and it was in bad taste, right, there's a possibility that he didn't even really understand the intensity of how much of a bad taste that joke was, right? And so, nobody that I've seen has really talked about his non-verbal learning disorder. So I think it's NVLD, which actually, he might say things a lot of times that people are thinking, like, what's wrong with you? Or, or he might not get the intensity of it. And so that's something to factor into this conversation too, that, he's openly said that he doesn't get social cues. And so a lot of people say that he probably should have known that, or he should have seen it. But the fact of the matter is, he might not have been able to see what was going on. And so, this is a conversation that, we're not going to tackle in one sitting. This is a conversation we're not going to tackle, in one, in one live. But I just really wanted to just put that out there, that we really need to have these conversations in our community. Black men need to stop just talking in black men circles, male circles, and black women just need to stop talking in black women circles, because what happens is there's an ideology that forms in both of these circles that don't work together. And so you keep seeing the divide, you keep seeing the division, because we're not speaking to each other. And we are speaking to each other, we're not listening to each other. We're not taking time to sit back and really consider what the other person is saying. And so, one of the things that I love about the word of God is that it says, every man should be slow to speak, slow to anger, and quick to listen, right? I think that's one of the biggest texts, is that we got to be more quicker to listen than we are to speak words out of our mouths, right? Because what happens is when you actually listen, you learn things. There's a lot of things I've learned about women, by listening. I could get defensive. I could, rebuttal. I could defend my point. I could, make sure that I'm right or fight for my rightness. But, what I've learned is that when you shut up and you actually listen, you're able to take things in. And another great thing about that is in my relationship with God is that I might hear something that's crazy, right? But what I do is, I go back and I tell God exactly this. I'm like, Lord, like, this sounded crazy. I think this is dumb. But is there anything here that I need to listen to? Or is there anything here that I need to get in order to improve my life, right? And 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to tell you, God will bring something out of something that somebody said that I completely rejected in my spirit, and he'll be like, no, you need to consider this. And so, sometimes we need to just get off our high horse. We need some humility in our community, so that we're able to just sit back. Your voice is not the most important voice every time in the room, right? Other people have voices, other people have opinions, other people have ideas that might actually be beneficial for your life, and you might actually be able to grow if you will just listen. And so my plea as we end this live is that black women, please start listening to black men, and black men, please start listening to black women, because there's reasons why we are going through some of this hurt and this trauma that's in our communities, and we need to start getting to the bottom of this. We need to start having productive conversations. We need to stop just talking and demonizing each other and calling each other's names, but we need to start actually coming together and finding solutions so that we can heal and that we can grow from here. future. Once again, my name is Wale Ade, and this has been another edition of Religion and Politics. If you like this content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Plenty of different content out there, that things that I think you would enjoy. And also, if you want to support me as well, there's a Patreon down there that supports this channel. And if you want to see what my setup looks like, I'm also going to put links down in the description so that if you want to start a podcast, you can do that too. But feel free to reach out to me in the comment section. I want to continue this conversation. Let me know what you think. Do you think that black women are not protected by black men? Do you think that black men shouldn't protect black women if they're not worthy? What is your thoughts? What is your opinions? I want to hear that in the comments below. And so I just thank you for joining me today on this podcast, and I hope to see you soon on the next episode of Religion and Politics. Have a blessed day.